everyone, thanks for tuning in today. I'm Nicole Forbes with Dennis's 70s, and I'm surrounded by summer flowering shrubs. It was, just as usual, my pleasure to dash around the garden center this morning here in the Lake Oswego location and fill my cart full of plants that are beautiful and blooming. And we are at the end of June. We've just gone through our first kind of heat spell of the summer where it was 97, maybe close to 100 degrees over the weekend. And these plants, some of them just loved it. Some of these plants just popped open and really hit their, bloom for the first time this year. And others did just fine through the heat as long as we gave them a little water or some shade. And I just want to talk about what's still flowering at this time of year and what is yet to continue to bloom or hasn't even started to flower yet for the season. Because I often hear people talk about their garden either kind of, coming in and out of waves of color, or what's really common in the Northwest is that our gardens may feature spring blooming plants, rhododendrons, azaleas, Pieris, forsythia, all of those really early spring bloomers. And then about this time of year, everything's green and we've really lost the summer color. In big categories, if we were to talk about blooming plants in big categories, here represented on the table, I have a lot of hydrangeas. So we're going to talk about all of the different types of hydrangeas. And then I also have one rose, but my goodness, roses, are a big category of summer blooming shrubs. Now, I have to admit that there is no handout for today's class. So there's no accompanying blog piece, or I don't have these plant names written out for you or anything like that. So I'm sorry, but time just did not allow for it this week. I will do my best to describe to you the plants, and if you have specific questions, just please ask in a comment and we'll make sure that we give you the names of the plants. Come back, stop in to any one of our stores. Specifically, this table represents what Lake Oswego has to offer today, but our garden centers all have different inventory and everybody's got some really great blooming plants yet for the season. Roses and hydrangeas are just the tip of the iceberg, and so in order to not get carried away on them, I first want to start talking about some of the other plants that I have here, and then we'll get into roses and hydrangeas. So what's yet to even still flower late summer or even like midsummer and into late summer or fall, I have some plants that are budded and about to bloom, and then there are a few plants that aren't even yet budded. They don't have flower buds yet, but they will be blooming in like the peak of summer and into late fall. So that includes some really great, some of my favorites. And one here is, this is Abelia, and it's Kaleidoscope Abelia. So Kaleidoscope Abelia is an evergreen or semi-evergreen shrub. And you see on that colorful tag that it shows on the picture in front, it has a small kind of pale pinkish white flower that is late summer and into fall. And then fall color that kind of shows winter new growth, winter growth that you see both for fall and into spring. So it's kind of a coppery, almost orangey tipped plant. More sun gives it a brighter variegation, although we've had it in some shade right now. And that little bell-shaped flower is attractive to hummingbirds and bees, and also is lightly fragrant. So Abelia has moderate deer resistance as well. If you have really high deer pressure, you might want to use a spray or just kind of, be prepared for some potential damage. But Abelia Kaleidoscope is 4 to 5 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet wide. As I mentioned, semi-evergreen. So it's going to hang onto its leaves through most of the winter. And in a harsh winter, it's going to drop its leaves just for the duration of cold and then usually start leafing back out pretty quickly. I think even though it's not blooming until late in the season, the foliage blends really well with other plants, and it can even be grown in a container. It can be pruned back pretty hard in the spring or late winter because it flowers on current year's growth, so on new wood. So you can take it down smaller if you don't want it up to be that 4 or 5 feet. Next to Abelia, and also budded but not yet quite in bloom, is a plant that is not, it's not carried in like mass quantity at garden centers. In fact, sometimes you don't see it at all, and it's not super common. This is a plant called honeybush. That's the common name. I've been struggling to try to remember the common name, and it came out right on time. Honeybush, or clethra, Clethera. Clethra is a deciduous shrub. It is summer blooming, and it is intensely fragrant. That's what honeybush is referring to, as this like sweet smell of the flowers. Now, Clethra drops its leaves in the winter, and it likes full sun or partial sun, and it likes moist soil. So it's not a drought tolerant shrub. We are easily going to see it get, so this is a variety called 16 Candles, which gets 5 feet tall by 3 feet wide. And here I'll give you a kind of a close-up of what the blooms are going to look like. I don't know, it's hard to see those. Beautiful kind of spikes of creamy white flowers that just have this lovely, lovely fragrance. And again, attracts hummingbirds, and bees also love it. So you got to like dodge them to get in and get a whiff of it, but it also just kind of wafts through your garden. Clethra loves water, though, remember, and full to partial sun. 5 by 4. I'm going to make extra room on my table by putting some of these down after I talk about them. Now, also, late summer, fall blooming, not extremely common or seen frequently at the garden centers. And some of this is because, to be honest, if a plant isn't blooming by like July, you as the consumer, you might not come back to the garden center until, fall. And so some of those plants kind of miss the window of where we have lots of shoppers, and so shoppers don't even know that these plants are out there or that they exist. This is a form of vitex. It's also known as chaste tree, like you're so chaste, This is a vitex called Summer Blues, and it is not even budded yet for its flowers for the season, but it will be forming flower buds soon. And chaste tree, as the name implies, can be fairly large, but Summer Blues is not too big. 6 feet tall, 5 feet wide. Has that pretty, compared to a deeper green, it has kind of a blue-gray leaf. It is deciduous, so again, you'll have the leaves drop off in the fall, winter. Once full sun, and chaste trees do really well out at the coast even, so they're deer and rabbit resistant. They're very drought tolerant. They seem to bloom well in kind of temperate conditions, although they're fine in Portland as well. And the flowers on a chaste tree look a lot like the flowers on butterfly bush. So little wands, kind of spiky wands of blooms, although chaste trees' flowers are more of a blue, kind of a blue silver color. So beautiful late season blooms on chaste tree that again would be attractive to butterflies and bees with that fabulous wand or kind of bloom spike form, and then deer and rabbit resistant. Really doesn't do that great in shade though, so you want it in some good sun. Also on the budded and soon to be blooming deck, crepe myrtle. Out. There's a rose sticking me. Crepe myrtle is really one of those plants that's becoming more commonly seen. Here, I'm doing a shuffle. Crepe myrtle are being seen more and more in our region, and I think that that's a reflection of those of us that are gardening in more full sun. We're finding, increased heat in the summer, and we need plants that are heat tolerant. Crepe myrtle, as I may have mentioned before, you hear me talk about, are hot, drought-loving plants that really thrive in like the hottest spot in your garden. They are used as street trees in Sacramento, California, so you know they can take it hot. And normally we think of crepe myrtle as being like not just a shrub, but like a shrub slash tree. So fairly good sized, and they can even be trimmed or trained to have more of a single trunk tree form. But because of the popularity of crepe myrtle, we now are looking at more varieties that are being bred and released on the market in dwarf forms and compact forms. So this is a series that is out called the Bellini series. So Bellini, small. And this is Bellini raspberry. It's, again, not in bloom yet, but very similar flower tones to kind of the other, pinks that you see on my table today. But crepe myrtle flowers look very much like little wads of crepe paper, which is how they get their name, crepe myrtle. And then I guess the leaves look like myrtle. So there you have it, crepe and myrtle. Little Bellini raspberry is 4x4. So a perfect compact size that makes it even appropriate to grow in pots or containers. Ideally, like I said, hot and full sun. So if you're kind of, questioning the amount of sun that it gets, don't put a crepe myrtle there. Choose something else that we'll talk about for, long summer blooms. Crepe myrtles want it as hot as you can give them. They also will deliver flowers that go into late summer, fall, followed by crazy fall color. Amazing, beautiful rainbows of reds, oranges, yellows, stunning in the fall. And then they drop their leaves because crepe myrtle are deciduous. So Bellini series is kind of one of the newer groups that you'll see on the market and at our garden centers, in addition to the taller crepe myrtles that can be anywhere from, so this is 4x4. We've got crepe myrtles that are 6, 8, 12, 25 feet, and probably even more. Now that we have covered the budding plants that are yet to still bloom for the season, now we can get into some of the plants that are in full bloom, and that is kind of the remainder of my table here. One that I can smell just by being close to it, and its wonderful fragrance here, is butterfly bush. So talking about butterflies, is the season for butterflies. It's another good year, it seems, at least in my world, for butterflies. In my garden, I've started to see multiple. I think every day this week I have seen a swallowtail butterfly, both at home and at work. I saw a swallowtail butterfly cross the highway while I was in traffic, so that was cool. And if you are looking to add butterflies or, attract butterflies to your garden, really, like, it's a no-brainer. Get yourself a butterfly bush. They don't exactly grow butterflies, but you might be surprised at how quickly one will find you once you have a butterfly bush in your garden. Now,
include the grow zones?
Yeah, okay, include the grow zones. We'll go backwards on those. So Miss Molly Budlia is actually hardy zone 5 to 9. Butterfly bush have gotten a bad reputation in previous forms and in past years, and for a good reason. Old school, old-fashioned butterfly bush have been deemed invasive in the Portland metro area and are on the invasive species list for the Portland region. The reason is that the flowers form a seed that is carried far in the wind, or by birds, or I'm not even sure, but it travels far out into the kind of wilder regions. And then the plant is so easy care, so low maintenance, and kind of survives on its own that it takes root in the woods in a little sunny patch and grows quickly to kind of displace some of our other native plants. So I know it's like, well, who cares if it's a lovely plant and it, lives on its own in the woods? Well, we need our native plants to support our native wildlife, and some of those have a really tight, specific relationship with one another. Although the Buddleia group or butterfly bush provides nectar and pollen, it's not as specific to the native creatures that we have. So again, the flash forward several years after the invasive butterfly bush was restricted for sale and actually deemed illegal on the market, plant breeders have been able to come up with varieties of butterfly bush cultivars that are sterile, meaning that they form seeds that aren't viable, so their seeds don't sprout into new plants. And while they were doing some breeding with the sterility of the plant, they also were able to get a smaller growing or more compact form of butterfly bush. Because those of us that have seen the old ones in the past, they are, again, kind of tree-like. They're great big plants. So nowadays our butterfly bush are more compact. This is Miss Molly, and Miss Molly is 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. It is really nicely fragrant, just a wonderful smell, kind of a light, fresh, not lilac-y, but I don't know, just summer fresh smell. Now, I've already done some deadheading on Miss Molly because it's kind of a quick bloomer, and the heat, kind of made some of those flowers go quickly. But you can see how many blooms it has on it. The flowers come from kind of joints in the stems, but it's also got more flower buds forming just below the current blooms out. So these are spikes of flowers that are yet to open, and then there are secondary flower spikes that sit just below that will bloom after the first flower. So you can deadhead easily. Here's an example of a brown kind of spent flower, and then you can see on either side of it one that's blooming, and then a bud here on the other side that will bloom after. So if I get in there and prune, I can deadhead like so, and now that's going to encourage the new flowers to go ahead and continue blooming. It's not like absolutely necessary, but it can help either, make your plant look a little tidier, but it definitely does seem like it extends the bloom or makes them flower longer if you're able to get in there and just deadhead. Once you're experienced at it, you can do it pretty quickly. And like I said, it just kind of makes things look a little tidier at the same time, and encourage more flowers. So it's totally worth it if you put out that effort. Best in full sun. Will take partial shade, but you'll see less flowers from the butterfly bush in part shade. Again, Buddleia attract bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, and they're deer and rabbit resistant. It will drop all of its leaves in the wintertime, so it goes down to sticks, but it blooms on current year's growth, which means, again, you can prune it pretty hard late winter, early spring before new growth begins to keep it a little bit tidier or more compact than that 4 to 5 feet. Going backwards, zone-wise on our Vitex Summer Blues, zones 5 to 9. On Clethra, it's pretty darn hardy. Clethra zone 4, down to zone 4, that's negative 30. And Abelia zone 6 to 10. Sorry, zone 4, you can't grow Abelia. Buddleia or butterfly bush, as just mentioned, we just saw Miss Molly. We've got other colors as well. So clearly I was on like a pink and white theme today, and so I didn't bring in the purple one or whatever, but come take a look at all of the different colors of Buddleia or butterfly bush as well. and take one home. You'll have butterflies, more butterflies in your garden. Another butterfly popular plant, this is spirea. So many of us have spirea in our landscape because it's a very easygoing, kind of low maintenance foundation plant for landscaping. Some spirea are spring blooming and they are already done flowering for the season. But we're looking at Spirea Magic Carpet. And Magic Carpet is a summer bloomer. You can see these just like fuzzy little pink flower clusters. Nice big clusters of blooms is what seems to be attractive to not to hummingbirds, to butterflies. So as we talk about, when we talk about butterflies, there's tons of flowers all kind of combined to make one big looking bloom here. So a butterfly is able to actually land and have multiple meals. I mean, they could eat 5, 10, like 40, 50 flower drinks from just landing on this one flower cluster. And that is better than if they land on a single bloom, for example, like our fuchsia. If they land on the fuchsia, they just have the fuchsia to drink from. Then they have to fly to another flower, which costs them a lot of energy. So the buffet style or all you can eat of the kind of cluster bloom or the spiky bloom of the butterfly bush, again, that, that long elongated wand or spike is covered by, or made up of tons of teeny tiny flowers, and each teeny tiny flower is a meal. There's the teeny tiny flower, of course, that hundreds and hundreds of them together combined, probably won't even zoom in on it. So that's what makes up all of the, the conglomerated butterfly bush bloom. Back to Magic Carpet Spirea. We are looking at another deciduous shrub. So lots of these summer bloomers, I mean, they're flashy summer bloomers. So they're not usually going to also be evergreen for you in the wintertime. It's rare that we just have, that we get it all, that we have a plant that is evergreen and extremely showy. That's why we make combinations and layers and garden planting design choices to create that all seasons garden, giving us something in the winter, some other plants that bloom throughout the summer. Magic Carpet is super hardy. We are looking at, again, -30, so zone 4, you're back in the game. So zones 4 to 9. And Magic Carpet is a moderate kind of dwarf mounding variety. So up to like 2 feet tall, 2 feet wide. And before it's in bloom, we have this kind of nice limey green colored foliage. And the new growth is more of has more of a light copper tint to it. So just a fun kind of range of colors that the plant goes through as it leaves out in the spring, nice coppery new growth, then it kind of ages to this lime, then buds up with those bright pink flowers, and now we're going to have, it's in the peak of its bloom. There's a few flower buds still left to open, but then once it's finished blooming, we kind of shear it off lightly, and shearing could be done with hand pruners. Just sort of grab the plant and do some just overall cutting to clean off some of those old flowers, or you could just leave it alone, and the new growth will kind of grow up and cover the top of the previous year's growth that has the flowers and things on it. Now, what I just said, hard to find that perfect plant that is evergreen and blooms through the summer and is showy, even better if it's fragrant or something like that. Well, we've got star jasmine. Star jasmine this weekend here in Portland with the sun that we just had, I mean, it just burst everywhere. It's in full bloom. It smells so good. This is the smell of summer for me. I usually relax at the end of the day, kind of on my back porch, where I have jasmine on one side, I've got a honeysuckle nearby blooming, and then I've got some hops vines that give me a nice bit of shade from the kind of late angled sun. So I'm surrounded by vines, and I'm always just like, when will the jasmine bloom? When will the jasmine bloom? Well, it's finally just opened, and it's divine. This is it's a vine, so it does like to climb on structures. Could easily go 20 feet and be a beautiful screen, like a privacy screen, or just create a backdrop for other plants. It can also be sheared into a shrub, for example, and just be allowed to kind of grow as an informal shrub, or let run on the ground and be treated more like a ground cover and pruned back as a ground cover. It's a great slope stabilizer, and jasmine in our area is an evergreen vine as well. So now I realize it's not hardy for everyone. In fact, it's borderline even for us. We're looking at hardy zone 8 to 11, and this will bloom for at least 6 weeks or more. So typically it's through like July and into mid-August. Some seasons with good watering and care, it can bloom on into September. Hummingbirds do come to visit the jasmine. Bees come to it, but it's not like a huge bee attracting plant. So again, if you want it near where you sit and relax, if hummingbirds make you nervous, then you might consider that an obstacle, but I wouldn't be worried about having too many bees around me or anything because I put jasmine out. So it's not bee magnet, number one. Also blooming right now, that may technically, again, fall somewhere between shrub and tree, but we grow it often in one form or another, is smoke bush. And so, I guess you fall in one camp or another. You either call it smoke tree or you call it smoke bush. I'm going to call it smoke bush because it's my show. And this is a smoke bush. Now, if I look at the tag, it says smoke tree. So, wah, wah. This is a variety called Grace, one of the best, in my opinion. Grace has kind of green foliage in the lower, older portion, but the new growth on Grace is this like dusky purple, just a beautiful color contrast in your garden. It is a deciduous plant, again, and turns amazing colors in the fall before it drops its leaves. And why is it called a smoke bush? Well, because of its flowers. So it's actually blooming right now, even though that might not be what you would count as a flower. Some people would think that all of the petals have already fallen off, but that's the bloom right there. It's when the entire plant is blooming, it looks like a haze or kind of a cloud of smoke is hanging above the plant. And certainly from a distance, or if that flower is backlit with some sunlight, it really is a dramatic and cool effect. And so it looks like the plant is smoking, hence the name smoke bush. Now, cotinus or smoke bush is best in full sun. You're going to get the best color and kind of form in full sun. There are small varieties, and we do actually have a couple of the newer, more compact forms that are like 4x4, which is great because we're looking here. Grace gets 18 to 20 feet tall. So yeah, that does put it into the tree category pretty easily. But you can also trim it or prune it. It can get 10 to 12 feet wide. So again, if you leave this kind of multi-stemmed, multi-trunk effect, it's going to get wide and tall, but it can be pruned into like more of a tree form if you wanted, so that you've got room to plant underneath it and then just let it go tall. If you hard prune a smoke bush, meaning if you cut it back way hard every spring or whatever, you may impact the flowering for that year. Some people don't really care. I mean, some people are really growing the smoke bush for this awesome purple leaf, not necessarily for the effect of the smoking flowers. So use that to, to determine whether or not it's something that you want to put in your garden and prune hard, or if you have the space, let it be what it's going to be. And zones, I don't know the zones, but, oh, there we go. Zone 5, -20, quite hardy. Again, drops its leaves in the winter, as I mentioned, but dramatic fall color before it does. I got to get this rose out of my way so that it stops poking me with its prickles. This is, again, we're just into the peak of rose blooming season. If you are, if you're a Portland resident and you get like out of town guests, the rose garden in the summertime is likely one of those places that you're going to take your guests, because it's just mind blowing how beautiful it is and how many roses we have, in color at any time during the summer. Come to the garden center and of course walk through and see just the same. We've got, only you can buy them and take them home. So we're like rose garden with the added benefits. It was hard to just pick a rose to bring in today. In fact, I brought 2, but I only have room on my table for 1. So there. What I'm showing off are carpet roses. These are flower carpet roses, and they really are like little shrub roses, little landscape shrub roses. This particular variety is flower carpet pink, and you can just see it's just a bundle of flowers on a kind of smaller leafed, bushy plant. This is going to end up growing about 3 by 3, so 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide, loves the sun. Carpet roses are disease resistant, low maintenance, and self-cleaning, which means that you don't have to get in with your pruners and deadhead the old flowers. So you won't have to chop these off like you would other roses. The flowers just fall off. They dry up and they fall off when they're done, and then more flowers are formed behind them. So there's buds here. There's buds here as well as blooms open, and then more flowers will form. And often carpet roses are blooming into September, if not even later than that. So full sun is best. Give them 6 hours of sun or more. They're really quite heat tolerant. Gorgeous in like mass planting on a bank, for example, or down your walkway. They're not exactly the kind of rose you're going to cut for a bouquet, but they are mass color for the landscape on a plant that comes back year after year and blooms for months. So you can buy or have flowers from something else that may not be quite as reliable of a performer in the ground. Now, before, again, we get into some of the other plants here, I've got this beauty that we see blooming this time of year, and it's such a pretty flower. The blooms themselves look a little bit like a rose, maybe like a rose crossed with a poppy. The petals are very delicate. The blooms last about a day. So we see some dried up flower buds from yesterday's or 2 days ago's flowers, and they fall off. But then we have flower buds that will be open in another day or 2 and last another day or 2 themselves. So this is called a rock rose. Rock rose is, botanical name on rock rose is cistus, C-I-S-T-U-S. Cistus is hardy zone 7 to 9, so again, not a huge range, but it's an evergreen. We have this kind of deep green shiny leaf that's actually a little bit sticky. So the stems themselves are a little sticky. The leaves are a little sticky. It is heat and drought tolerant. Actually, it prefers dry soil, basically. So it could get overwatered. It could get waterlogged in heavy clay soil. There are varieties that are pink and smaller blooming, but this is a white variety just called maculatus. And maculatus grows about 4 to 5 feet tall and wide. So rock rose are deer resistant, rabbit and deer resistant, attract bees, but not so much hummingbirds or butterflies, but bees are happy to come to it. And again, not the longest bloomer, probably flowers for a month or so. And the flowers themselves each only last a couple of days, but it's covered with buds and will bloom profusely for that month. So it's showy, if not as long lasting as some of the other plants that we're talking about here on the table. Rock rose, cistus. Making our way through here. My table's getting, now you can see me a little bit better. Another just kind of classic flowering shrub / tree for the summer garden is Rose of Sharon. And Rose of Sharon is also sometimes what we call just hardy hibiscus. Rose of Sharon, you can see each individual bloom. This particular variety shows us that hibiscus looking flower with the raised center of that kind of classic hibiscus bloom. So the blooms on Rose of Sharon aren't quite as large as a tropical hibiscus or as like our hibiscus moschutos, the hardy hibiscus that gets like flowers as big as your head. That's in our perennial section because those die back every year. But Rose of Sharon is a woody shrub. It is deciduous, so it will drop its leaves in the winter. There are multiple varieties that will vary in their height. This is one called Chateau de Chambord, 6 by 4. And again, gorgeous pink with kind of a little bit of that like rosy pink center. So lighter pink with a darker pink center and that raised middle that gives us the classic hibiscus look and feel. Full sun to partial sun on the Rose of Sharon. Some, because this is a smaller plant, up to 6 feet, but we can find Rose of Sharon become fairly good sized plants, 8 to 10 feet even in the garden, depending on size. It is one of those shrubs that can be pruned to resemble a tree or be more arborized so that you have a single stalk and then more of a tree on top. And a long bloomer. So Rose of Sharon are long blooming as well. If I had to pick on Rose of Sharon for any one thing, did I say deer and rabbit resistant? If I didn't, I did now. If I had to pick on them for any one thing, it's that they seed. So they make seedlings from their flowers and their seeds sprout in your garden. So if you don't recognize one right away, like by the next year you turn around and you've got more Rose of Sharon, maybe not where you expected it to be. So even just looking in the pot here, I actually see a seed of Rose of Sharon. I can pull it out pretty easily. It has a really long root, single long root, and right now it still just has its first set of leaves that don't look anything like these leaves. But if you are at home and you have Rose of Sharon at home, go out around your landscape where the Rose of Sharon is and look for this very classic, weird kind of two, rounded leaves, sprouts all over the place that super easy to pull, but if you don't pull them early, you will have something that is a little bit deeper rooted and maybe harder to get out. They're pretty hardy. Hardy to zones 5 to 9. So again, negative 30, negative 20, negative 10 or 20, which, as I often say, I'm not hardy to negative 20. So Rose of Sharon, you're pretty tough. I want to talk about hydrangeas, but I'm going to talk about fuchsias so that I can make my way to the hydrangeas. Fuchsias, I did stretch perhaps the shrub definition, but again, who makes the rules? I make the rules. This is my class. So I want to talk about fuchsias because they can get pretty woody in the garden, which makes them like, why not? They could be a shrub. We can call them a shrub. I did go get them in the perennial section if we want to start splitting hairs, but these are in-ground hardy fuchsias. I love them. I love them because they bloom from like May to October. Okay, so there's that. They bloom from May to October. They attract bees and hummingbirds. Their flowers are, they have a wide range of flowers. They're not necessarily going to be like a drive-by, wow, look at that amazing garden, like some of these big blooms are. You, in many cases, have to either get up a little bit closer to the shrub to appreciate it, or I don't know, change your expectations of what you think is a beautiful bloom. There are large, classic flower shapes of hardy fuchsia. So this is Golden Herald. Not like Harold and Maude, but Herald like Herald the News, or whatever. So Golden Herald, and you can see that like beautiful fuchsia center with the red sepals. It is pendulous, meaning that it dangles. The flowers dangle from the stems themselves. And Golden Herald is best in partial shade, and that's because it's got this real limey, kind of golden limey leaf. So partial shade, maybe give it morning sun, afternoon shade, but where it like qualifies as shrubby, other than that it gets kind of woody, is, Golden Herald here gets 4 to 5 feet tall and 4 to 6 feet wide. So that's my size, right? So that's a big plant in the perennial department. And again, long blooming. The trick with hardy fuchsias, zone people, zones 8. So hardy 10 to 20 degrees. It's pretty limited to, if you're lucky enough to live in the Portland metro area, these are hardy for you. If you're watching from somewhere else, sorry. You grow annual fuchsias probably. Golden Herald is one of the largest blooming of the hardy fuchsias. And then we have, I'm not sure how to pronounce this. It's Katjan, Katjan. So can you blame me? Katjan fuchsia. Bees, butterflies, hummingbirds. Look at these clusters of teeny tiny, adorable flowers. So just like that great big one that we looked at a minute ago on Golden Herald. Let me get one. Just like this flower, only in miniature and less of a contrast of colors. So it's all more of kind of like a maroon and red, but just like blooms all the way up the stem. Looks like little earrings. Katjan gets 2 to 3 feet tall, 1 to 2 feet wide. Again, part shade, which means part sun as well. Long blooming, zone 7, 0 to 10. So what I say, Golden Herald was zone 8. So a little bit hardier on Katjan. Smaller leaf, smaller flower, possibly just a little bit hardier. May to October, long blooming, then they die back in the winter to just sticks. This is another one of my favorite hardy fuchsias. This is Hawk's Head. So Hawk's Head, pure white, well, not even pure white, I guess, pale pink and pure white. Tons of flowers, so it's just getting started, even though it's kind of late in the season. We've had a late season this year. Part sun to shade on Hawk's Head. We are looking at zone 7, so 0 to 10. 3 by 3 is a lie. The tag says 3 by 3. My Hawk's Head at home is taller than I am and probably 3 or 4 feet wide. So let's say 3 to 5 feet tall and maybe 3 to 5 feet wide. Hummingbirds, love it. Bees, love it. Butterflies, meh. I mean, it says butterflies. I've never really seen it be a big attractor to butterflies, but blooms into September, sometimes October. And all fuchsias are tolerant of moist soil, but mine have been in the ground. My hawkshead has been in the ground for years, is in an area of my garden that is not irrigated, so it has no automatic sprinklers. I water it occasionally when I just feel like I should probably do it, but it rarely like asks for it. So although tolerant of moist soil, really quite drought tolerant as well. And the trick with hardy fuchsias here in the Portland metro area is, you paying attention? Wait, there we go. The trick is that they die back to sticks in the fall/winter. They bloom until frost. And then they lose their leaves and they are just sticks. And they're not pretty sticks, they're just sticks. However, if you are the kind of gardener that likes to go out then in the fall and cut away all of the sticks so that you don't look at sticks, you want to avoid doing that on your hardy fuchsias. Leave them up, leave the sticks alone. The very same hummingbird that drank from the flowers all summer long will sit on those sticks and sing to you and use them as perches, especially if you have a few other things bloom in your garden for the winter. And then in the late winter, early spring, February, Marchish, that's when you go out, look at the hardy fuchsia. You will notice from the framework of kind of woody sticks that you have from previous year's growth, you will see little bits of green shoots that are starting to show the return of the plant's growth. Some will be around the ground, around the base of the plant. Some will be coming from low on the plant. And there will be some portion of it that has no growth at all, that died back over the winter. And when you see that stage, that new growth emerging, that's when you want to cut back your hardy fuchsia, and you could take it back to just little 6-inch nub if you want, or you could just cut back the ends of which didn't regrow for the season. I'm pretty sure I haven't cut mine back hard in a few years, which is why my hawkshead is 5 feet tall. If you cut yours back hard every spring, you could keep it to that like 3 feet and be more compact. So there's the trick on hardy fuchsias. Otherwise, they're really wonderful plants and quite trouble-free. Now to the hydrangeas in the room. I've got mophead style, or what we would call hydrangea macrophyllus, as well as hydrangea paniculatas, or the panicle style hydrangeas. And we also have an oak leaf hydrangea on the table today. The world of hydrangeas is still just going bananas. Plant breeders seem to really have a lot of great ideas and improvements in the world of hydrangeas. And so they just keep breeding newer, cooler, they just make me want them all. So let's just kind of run through some of the varieties that you may or may not be familiar with. I mean, those of us that have been gardening for years are like, yeah, hydrangeas, I've seen them all. But if you look here at the front of my table, I've got two cultivars, I guess we would say, of a series called Seaside Serenade. So this is Seaside Serenade Fire Island. And then we have Seaside Serenade, I keep forgetting what this one is, Crystal Cove. So yeah, help me out, Becky, because I'm trapped back here. Crystal Cove and Fire Island both have this frilly, kind of ruffled flower. The petal of each individual bloom is almost serrated or edged with an extra layer of ruffle, which gives it some just extra style. Fire Island, you see, has kind of a lighter center and then that deep pink edge. But both Fire Island and Crystal Cove will change colors depending on the pH of your soil. So they're long-lasting flowers on and big blooms on compact plants. The Seaside Serenade series is like 4 feet tall, 4 feet wide, so 4 by 4. They are repeat bloomers, so they bloom on current year's growth as well as previous year's growth, which makes them easy to prune and easy to care for. The series is, again, hardiness. Sorry, zone people. Hardiness is zones 4 to 9. So we're looking at a pretty hardy plant. The more alkaline your soil is, so the more limey or alkaline, you will have this lovely pink or pinkish red flower. And the more acidic your soil is, or if you add an acidifier, you can pull it into the more purple or blue-purple hues. So both Fire Island and Crystal Cove, you can change the colors of depending on the pH of your soil. That also goes with, if you can look straight down now, Becky, we've got Summer Crush on the floor. I've been on the floor with the Summer Crush before too, but Summer Crush hydrangea is one of my favorites. Huge flowers. Look, I'll just put my hand over to see. Huge flowers on Summer Crush. This is more of your standard mop head style hydrangea, best in partial shade, filtered sun or partial shade. We would not put these hydrangeas in hot afternoon sun, but I wouldn't put them in the darkest spot in my garden either and expect them to really perform. So they do need a little bit of light or morning sun even to show up. The colors on Summer Crush can be intensified, so you can go to a more raspberry color in a more alkaline soil, or you can pull it into almost more of kind of a grapey purple if you've got some acid to your soil. Summer Crush with those giant flowers is a compact grower, so 1.5 to 3 feet tall and wide. That's 18 inches to 36 inches on this hydrangea here. Makes it great for containers, and Summer Crush, although again it is best in part sun, has some improved heat tolerance or heat resistance. So I mean, even part sun can be hot, right? So Summer Crush can take the heat, and I'm growing it in a fair amount of sun at home, and as long as I keep it well watered, it's turning out to be able to take quite a bit of sun. Speaking of hydrangeas that can take sun, that moves us over to the corner of the table where I've got the panicle style hydrangeas. And that really starts with the one of the newer forms, newer cultivars. It is not in bloom yet, but you can see, even though it's not in bloom, kind of a cool burgundy maroon colored stem, a nice pretty green leaf on just a compact, kind of sturdy looking plant. This is Hydrangea paniculata Little Hottie. Now, Little Hottie was bred in the southern part of the U.S. and specifically bred to be a hydrangea with heat tolerance. Little Hottie is going to come out with white flowers, so it's got green buds, come out with white flowers, a little bit whiter than the strawberry shake here, and then that white flower will turn to a pale, like a light pale pink in the fall or late summer as the nighttime temperatures kind of start to drop. So white for quite a while, and then because hydrangea flowers hold on the plant for a long time, as temperatures drop, they'll fade to a pink. Little Hottie is 3 to 5 feet tall by 3 to 5 feet wide. So again, just a nice rounded shrub of medium size, drops its leaves in the winter, and is hardy to zone 3. And looks like 3 to 8. So Little Hottie coming in hot for your garden. And next in line, kind of similar, to Little Hottie, already blooming because it's a little bit ahead of schedule. This is Strawberry Shake. So Strawberry Shake is another panicle hydrangea. It looks a lot like Limelight, although more like Little Lime, so one of the more compact forms. We've got kind of a smaller leaf than the Little Hottie. You can see a little bit of a difference in in leaf size. Doesn't have the same thickness in stem, which means that we see Strawberry Shake is just a little bit floppier, whereas Little Hottie is extremely sturdy, gonna hold those flowers up really firm and high up in the air. Strawberry Shake comes out kind of a creamy, starts green, goes to creamy white, and then these flowers will also age to a soft pink as the temperatures drop in the fall. So another deciduous, sun-tolerant hydrangea. We can go in full to partial sun on Strawberry Shake. And Little Hottie. Little Hottie can take like 5 or 6 hours of full direct sun and heat. So again, if you love hydrangeas, but you just don't think you have the right conditions for it, chances are that you can reevaluate now that we've got some more heat-tolerant varieties to choose from. Now, if you want something, these are both in the Little Hottie and Strawberry Shake in that 3 to 5 foot range. So more compact, more rounded. If you want a larger hydrangea, a more dramatic statement in the garden, Vanilla Strawberry, which is over here in the corner. We've got it full of buds that are still yet to kind of plump and swell before this plant comes into full bloom. But once the flowers open, you're looking at a bloom stalk that's about 14 to 16 inches long. A big cone, big fat cone shape that's kind of creamy white and then starts to turn pink from the bottom as the white of the top still develops. So you have a two-tone flower with the effect of, like, I guess, a strawberry that's been dipped in vanilla or whipped cream or whatever. So that's the strawberry sundae name for it. You also get that beautiful, thick, kind of sturdy stem, a little bit of a maroon color on the stems, and a deciduous shrub altogether. Pretty sure that Vanilla Strawberry is going to be similar to Little Hottie in hardiness, and that is down to zone 3. So I could be wrong, but I can't reach the plant to confirm that. And I'm sure you could look that up if you're not here in Portland. Works here in Portland, and that's what really matters here for our class. Then the oak leaf hydrangea here, which is such a beauty. We do have gorgeous flowers on these panicle bloomers that will continue into September, sometimes even October. But once it starts to rain, like the game, is over on our flowers. They don't look great in a constant fall and winter rain. So then you take them off or prune them back. But the oak leaf hydrangea gives us flowers into the fall and foliage that also turns dramatic fall colors. We don't get much fall color on the panicle hydrangeas. They just turn kind of yellow and then their leaves drop. But on the oak leaf hydrangea, we have this patterned, kind of larger, cool patterned leaf shaped like an oak leaf instead of, nothing wrong with that, but not as exciting as the oak leaf in shape. And we get a gorgeous fall color change on this. Again, oranges, yellows, purples, kind of plums and burgundies before the leaf drops for the winter. Flowers are more of a lace cap style, but still that cone shape. So where something like vanilla strawberry is going to make a really big, dense bloom, we have this a little bit lighter, more delicate appearance of the lace cap flower form of oak leaf hydrangeas. Now this is a compact variety. So this is a variety called Ruby Slippers. And Ruby Slippers is 4 feet tall, 5 feet wide. And Ruby Slippers is named as such because these gorgeous white flowers are going to, again, age and mature to a dusky pink. So kind of a deeper dusky pink than we see on Strawberry Shake or on Little Hottie. And you can see right now they're in their kind of peak form of that creamy white. Long blooming, where the blooms are going to last again until late summer, early fall on Ruby Slippers. So did I give you height? Yes, 4 feet tall, 5 feet wide, Ruby Slippers. I hope that this again gives you inspiration. Look out at your garden and not, don't be critical, but critically evaluate whether or not you're in need of some summer color. It may not be, the ideal time of year for doing a big planting project this time of year, but certainly putting something into a container that you can be a little bit more regular about watering throughout the summer. You could enjoy it during the summer season and then follow through with a fall planting, which, depending on what area you are, if you are a Portland area gardener, fall planting for most plants is really a great time to put things in the ground. So if you've been inspired today, I expect to see you soon at the Garden Center. And again, I will take any follow-up questions as comments and reply to them throughout the day today when time allows. Everyone, thanks for watching. Happy gardening.